Okay, so this evening we have a topic for discussion for our citizens and our community as far as to information regarding our aging water system. This is something that a lot of cities have. It's something that is a major concern for a lot of cities, and unfortunately our city falls right in line with most of these other cities in this situation. So we're going to talk this evening about our aging system, looking at some different options and things that for us to look at. The council has worked very hard on this from the standpoint of starting to look at options to see what options are out there. They've worked hard doing their due diligence as far as looking at this to see what direction we're going to try to go. And of course, to start with that is just looking at the options. So our water system, we rely on it. There's no doubt about that. It's aging, and most of us know, of course, that it's in need of repair. And I feel like at this point in time, with what we're looking at, that we have to do our due diligence to inform our citizens and our community what we are dealing with. This is something that's not pleasant to do from the standpoint of this type of a discussion. The other thing that we have to work on, because we have businesses coming to our community, residents coming to our community, we need to work on this issue to make sure that we can support all of those that are wanting to actually invest in our community. On our aging infrastructure, as I know most of us here at this table recall, and most of our citizens recall, and that's the water main break that we experienced about a year ago on 16th Street. That was very devastating to our roadway, to our water system, and there again also to our citizens, reference to the detours and the length of time that it took to reconstruct and actually rebuild the road. Now, this cost was approximately $1.5 million for us to acquire this. RDC came in very fortunately and was able to fund this project, because there was no doubt that our utilities and the water department would not be able to fund this with the revenue that they have. And I think whenever we kind of look at this as far as to this incident here, we need to keep in mind from the standpoint of course, this was an emergency situation. If we would have had the revenue and been proactive, not here but in other places, as I will talk about a little bit later, whenever you take and you're proactive and you replace something, generally it's less expensive and it's much more better for our citizens rather than for it to be an emergency. So that's another thing that we really have to look at if we just want to be reactive and just deal with things whenever they break, or if we're going to try to be proactive and try to resolve some of our issues before they take place. Whenever we talk about main breaks, you know, in 2024, the city of Bedford had 46 line breaks. And these breaks, for the most part, whenever we talk about main breaks, that's not something that was scheduled. That's something that just broke, and there again, we go and try to repair it and fix it to the best that we can and go on down the road. And you know, some places I even familiar with where we would have a water line break and they would go down to fix it, and the pipe would be so bad on each end of the break that they would have to actually go in and maybe put in a 6 or 8 foot piece of pipe because the pipe is in that bad a condition. So of course the breaks in 2025 so far, we've had 16 this year. Normally, in talking with utilities, of course, it's the temperature change. Of course, in cold freezing weather, we'll have several pipes that'll break, and then even in the summertime, in July and August, in the extreme heat, we will experience also lines break at that point in time. So we wanted to go back a little further than that to try to get some more information, but as of this time, we were only able to get 2024 and 2025. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about specifics now in some of our water lines that I think is, to me, is very concerning. And I know that the council feels the same way that I do. As I stated a minute ago, the citizens need to be informed of what we have to deal with, because if we have another catastrophic event, I don't want them to be able to come and say, well, if I would have known, then I would have felt differently about this. So we are already there. You know, our water treatment plant from the river, which we get our water from White River, and it's called surface water, is where we get our water from. It goes from the river, it goes up to Illinois Street to our water treatment plant. And to me, this is very concerning. We have two 12-inch mains that run from this location to the water plant, and they are estimated both to be over 100 years old. We have one 20-inch main they believe was installed back in the early 1960s. So in talking about this, I mean, this is the water that we're getting from the river that's coming to our plant to furnish water to our entire cities and any other entities that we sell to. And to stop and think that our infrastructure is this old, and that is the main infrastructure that we get our water to the plant, to say the least, is very concerning. Majority of all of our water main lines here in the city of Bedford are approximately 75 years old. The city of Bedford has 110 miles of water main lines. I asked for them to break it down a little bit for us just for information. 27 miles of water main lines, 8 to 16-inch diameter, and 83 miles of water mains are under 8-inch diameter. 75 years old. And of course, the bigger the main is, of course, if it breaks, then the more water loss that we have to our citizens, and of course, the more damage it's going to do, and more expensive and harder to repair. Most of us here know another factor that is playing into this somewhat is the Williams Dam. As to, of course, as stated, we get our water from White River. There's been some public meetings on this as far as the condition of the dam and what's going to take place. I still don't know for certain what the outcome on the dam is going to be, just from the standpoint of legislation was introduced as far as to certain guidelines, if they were there, that a dam couldn't be removed. I know that they have already scheduled another meeting for July, to my understanding, on the Williams Dam. I, at this point in time, am not certain exactly what they're going to discuss. A lot of it's going to boil down to, I would say, the study as to what the statute says, if it can be taken out or it can't be taken out. But another concern that we have to also look at from the standpoint, if it's taken out or if it's not taken out, if it is left, with the age of the dam, it may be there for another 100 years, but there is also that possibility that it could fail at some point in time. And a catastrophic failure at the dam could be catastrophic to the city of Bedford. At this point in time, we have no alternate water supply for the city of Bedford other than the Williams Dam that would be adequate to serve all of our citizens and our businesses. So as stated, We use surface water off the river. Alternate sources would be a possibility of wells or possibly other water providers. We do have one other water company that could provide us with some water, but it would be half as much a day as what the city of Bedford uses. It would not supply all of our needs for all of our citizens in what we do. So there again, as far as we talk about revenue, we talk about alternate water sources as to what this would cost to research this, to look at that option as far as looking at a possibility of a well. One other thing that is rather surprising, whenever we talk about this, we looked at the city of Bedford seeing about changing insurance companies, looking to get a better rate and see what we could do for our city. And whenever they found out that we did not have an alternate water supply, the conversation was over. They did not want to discuss anything further with us if we did not have an alternate water supply. So on our current infrastructure and our rates, that right there is a big topic. Our current infrastructure and our rates as far as revenue. And I'm going to talk a little bit here about some things, of course, that the city of Bedford has done with the limited revenue that they have been collecting. And this is a time frame roughly for the last 15 years. 52 new fire hydrants, and that's something that the city assisted on with the utilities department to replace some of those because they are in dire need of being replaced, and the utilities department didn't have the funds to accomplish that task. Over 6,000 feet 12-inch water main, 4,500 feet east of Plaza Drive, 1,600 feet O Street to Bryan Lane Way. And any of you are familiar with our roads and stuff, notice that was in 2024, so that was our main water line break that we had on 16th Street that we had to repair. So that's 1,600 feet out of that 6,000 feet. And then it goes on to the 4-inch, the 10-inch, and the 6-inch as to what, in the last 15 years, what they have been able to do. Also, there was some work done. New UV building for disinfection in 2016 was put in. Something that was very pleasing for me to hear at the time was the removal of the chlorine gas, and they switched to generating their own sodium hychloride in 2018, which was great for our city and our community because of the chlorine gas being very volatile and could have been very actually deadly to our community. That was a huge accomplishment to be able to get that out. And they've replaced several components on their SCADA updates. SCADA is a system basically that is in the plant. It's automated, and most of it can be controlled remotely, which is something that's a big plus for our employees to be able to monitor things at times and not be specifically at the plant. All of that's been done, of course, with limited revenue. So, revenue shortfall. We can talk about grants, we can talk about lender feedback. Whenever we were applying for some grants through the state, one of the comments, whenever they look at our rates to see what we're actually doing, the comment was made that you expect us to give you money whenever you're not willing to help yourself. So they look at cities and towns that are being proactive and trying to solve their problems, and they try to work with them. But whenever you sit back and you're not addressing your issues and being proactive and just want someone to give you money, then this was the answer that we got. So this is something that we have to work on is our rates, and of course that's always an issue because it's an unpopular issue. but it's something, unfortunately, that we are going to have to address if we're going to be proactive at all, or if we're just going to continue just to be reactive. This slide, I think, is a very interesting slide, to say the least. And by putting this slide up here, I don't want anyone to think that I am saying anything about any other city, community, or whatever with their water, because actually what most of these places are doing is what needs to be done that unfortunately we have not done. So if you look at the top there, this is based on a 5/8 meter using 5,000 gallons. So this is roughly a household of, depending on 3 or 4 people. Now, that doesn't mean Bedford's got $31.31, but that doesn't mean that everybody's water bill is that much, because if you're a single person and you're not using any water, then it's not going to be that much. So for Bedford, the current rate is the $31.31. East Lawrence is $47.55. So you have a difference of $16.24. And whenever you stop and look at that, I mean, we're basically talking per household. As you can see, it goes ahead down. Olytic, $47.17, difference of $15.86 per household. North Lawrence is $85.33, difference of $54.02. South Lawrence, $110.39, a difference of $79.08. City of Mitchell, $61.36, a difference of $30.05 per month. So whenever you look at that, if you want to go to the next column, revenue opportunity per month with our residents, those are the numbers that our income could be increased. And if you go to the further side, per year, that's what we're looking at per year, as far as to, if we had the rates of some of the other communities, the difference of our income, what it would be. I think this slide says a lot, and I hope that our community and our citizens are able to look at it. I understand that when we talk about the rates, that no one is happy, but when you look at this, I think it just paints the picture of where the city of Bedford's at and how we are addressing our aging water system. So we've talked about a lot. We've went over a lot of information. So as it says, where do we go from here? It's very important to determine our future in this area as to what we want to happen and what we want to take place. Because as listed there, the number of people that we have that depend on their water every day, and when you stop and look at it to a point, this is our future. So whenever we talk about options, we look at this as stated. We can keep our rates about the same, and we can continue to be reactive, and hopefully we will not have a major catastrophic incident that the city of Bedford is partially out of water or out of water. We can be proactive, we can raise rates up to date and start replacing our aging system over time. Or the other option is consider the sale of our operation to a private entity. So we're basically looking at 3 options. Myself and the council I guess I should not speak for the council at this time. I will speak for myself. You know, the first option to me is not an option at all, in my opinion. The other two are options that we can look at, and in doing our due diligence, whenever we have to decide what is best for the city of Bedford, we have to take, in my opinion, all of these options into consideration. And as stated, we all know that this is a very important decision reference to our options, and we have to keep our future in mind. One entity that has shown interest, and that is Indiana American Water. They have approached us back some time ago as far as being interested in our water system. Actually, I was approached whenever I was first elected to office, and I was like, no, I don't believe we're interested right now. And with our revenue the way it is, and after the issue that we had on 16th Street, I think that we have to look at all options to see exactly what we think is best for our city. So looking at all of this and evaluating all of this to look into the future that what we think is best. And I'm going to go over some information here with Indiana American Water. And I'm not saying this to imply that myself, or I think the council, as looking at going a specific direction, because I don't believe that is true. But I think in our due diligence, we have to give information out there as to basically what Indiana American Water is, what they do, what they take care of. So on that slide, you can see that's just a few of the cities that they are actually in, that they are managing their water system and providing it and maintaining it. They're with nearly 75 communities and have about 1.5 million customers. You know, I actually have talked with the mayor of Seymour and the mayor of Greenwood just to get some basic information on their input, reference their cities. Their mayors were not involved with any acquisitions when it took place with them. It's been some time ago, but they informed me that they're there. They show up, they do their job, they do their work, and that's pretty much it. They don't really have any issues with them. So I think that pretty much speaks for itself. It's just a reference that I feel like that there again, doing our due diligence, we have to look at everything that's available to us. And a little bit more insight to this company. If we decide to continue, and the council has all agreed to take the next step, which is an appraisal process of our water department. So in this appraisal process, we, the city of Bedford, pick the engineering firms that we want to do the appraisal. There also has to be a realtor involved that's qualified reference to the land. This process takes in the neighborhood of around 3 months to 4 months to accomplish. And then once that information is obtained, that will be a time for the council to start looking at facts to see where they're at, as far as to if this is an option that the city of Bedford wants to continue to look at, or if they decide whatever the appraisal is that that's not enough, that they're not interested, or if the appraisal's too much. This has happened in the past that Indiana Water would come in and say, we're not interested. We're not interested in purchasing it at that price. So there's a lot of variables that are going to enter into this. The appraisal process at this point in time to do it will not cost the city of Bedford any revenue. It will be paid for by them. If we don't sell it or they don't buy it, we still don't pay for anything. The only way that we would pay for anything if we would agree to sell to them, then that appraisal fee would be taken off of the purchase price. So there again, we are just looking at options at this point in time that's actually not costing us anything from that standpoint, just so that we do our due diligence and look at options to see what's best for the city. One other thing, of course, that everyone is concerned about is the rates. Indiana American Water, they are regulated by the IURC and the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. So Indiana American Water must obtain commission approval before any rate changes. They can't just decide that they're going to raise the rates and do it themselves. It has to be approved by the commission. So this is something, of course, that's very important from that standpoint, that they do have guidance on their rates and what they can do. And one thing that the council and myself was very concerned about, and that is our utility workers, from the standpoint of making certain that they are taken care of. So in talking with Indiana American Water, and I'm just talking about this to give the general information out there, that they are willing to take a number of our employees and hire them to run the services that they would need to run if they would ever purchase this. So our goal was that our employees, no one would be told that they didn't have a job. They would either stay with the city or they would have a job from American Water. We met with the employees today at 3 o'clock. We went over all this information to keep them informed as to what's taking place and what options are being looked at. And then again, one of the main topics is to emphasize to them, along with all of our citizens at this point in time, there's been no decisions made, and we're only still looking at options to see what is available that we want to do. As I stated a minute ago, I've talked with council members, and everyone has been in agreement that we need to go ahead and explore the appraisal process and just see what options appear. And then when we receive those options, then look at them to see what direction we feel like that we may want to go. So I've done a lot of talking here. I'm going to turn it over to the council. If anyone would like to make any statements or any comments or anything about what we've been discussing for several months, I would encourage you to please do so.
Mr. Mayor, like every other municipality across the state, the aging infrastructure is an issue. We talked about Williams Dam, built in 1917 or whatever year it was put together. That, along with the infrastructure that we have, are all man-made structures. Man-made structures will fail, and it doesn't matter what legislation you put out or whatever other thing is out there. That doesn't, that just guides you per se. We've got issues. You've got 100-year-old pipes. Pretending they're not 100-year-old pipes doesn't help. You've laid out, with council's advice as well, several options, and exploring those options is the prudent thing to do, instead of waiting till we have a failure, especially one that goes to the main line to the river. Like I said, pretending the issue isn't there doesn't help anyone. So we have to look at it, whether that means privatization, whether that means looking at it and doing the work ourselves and maintaining the same methodology. Either way, it still has to be looked at, and we need to find out what those options are, and that's the stage we're at now.
I agree with Dan. I mean, it's something that's just been kind of passed along for years till we're at a point where something needs to be done, has to be done. So I think it's definitely worth checking out and see what we can come up with and see what they tell us. They may not want us, but it's worth a shot. So I'm all for it.
Misty, a majority of your water line breaks, 50% of them are after business hours.
Misty, if you would step up to the podium, please. Thank you.
Yes, most of ours seem like they're Friday nights in the middle of the night, on a weekend.
On a holiday.
On a holiday weekend, usually Christmas Day, New Year's Day, yeah,
Nature of the beast.
yes.
You
So-
know, and all of us had the 16th Street water line bus. I think it was a year ago this past weekend, I think, when we got back in town and some of us went out and looked at it. You know, seeing just the infrastructure and the way that it looked and in other numerous places through town, it definitely needs some work, and it's going to be a large investment for anybody. And whether we do it with here internally or we do look at other options, it's something that we need to dig in deep to and put a lot of thought to and see what we can do that's best for the city for the next 100 years.
I'd agree with everything Dan, Kathy, and Ryan said, and also back to your point, Mayor, where we have three options. The first one, doing nothing. I know you said you didn't want to speak for the council, and I'm not speaking for anyone else, but I agree with that sentiment that nothing really isn't an option. And I know everyone here on the council and everyone in the administration is cognizant of our taxpayers' pocketbooks, and we don't want, you know, a huge burden put upon them, but it's like anything in your life, you know, if you don't take care of it maintenance-wise ahead of time, it's usually a catastrophic thing that's going to cost a lot more in the long run. So, you know, just going off of that alone, I feel like now's the time to address it in whatever manner we choose. And I think as a council, we'll come to the best decision for the city. And obviously, as all council, and I know the mayor's office is open for, you know, thoughts of our citizens and what they think. But it's something that the time is here to be doing something about, and I'm happy we are doing that. So.
I would just like to say nothing lasts forever, unfortunately. And money's tight in all of our houses. There's only so much to go around. But we have limited options, and we're going to have to look at raising. The rates are going to have to be higher, no matter which option we choose.
I agree with everyone also. I mean, we know the rates are going to have to go up one way or another. We know we have an old structure underneath, like probably 95% of the cities in the United States are like that. We all have that problem. So it's something that can be fixed. We've got to figure out the best solution, and we'll work on this as a council. We want your comments, citizens, to let us know, and also being able to keep the employees. We don't want to lose our employees. They're valuable to the city, and we want to hang on to them, and whichever way we go, if we sell, we will take care of our employees.
I agree with everything that's been said. With the aging infrastructure, I feel we absolutely have no choice but to act in some way to protect the citizens of this city. I have a lot of faults, but ingratitude's not one of them. I want to sincerely thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking the lead on this. This is something that we truly have needed to do for several years, and thank you for taking the lead on it. I look forward to working with you and the rest of the council members to come to a conclusion as to what we need to do as a city. And I would ask the citizens, keep us in your prayers. This is a serious matter.
Well, I think the council, this is something that I think is, and this has been discussed as far as being unified on this front to try to accomplish this, because we're all here, we're all politicians, for most of us here at this table, from that standpoint. And it's very easy, and I've seen it done, and that's just kick the can down the road. And I have to give this council credit for stepping up and saying at this point in time that we need to address the issue. And I think I will speak for the rest of the council on this. There's not going to be any knee-jerk reaction. There's not going to be anything that's going to happen overnight. This is going to be a process. This is going to be such a lengthy process that I anticipate that we will be raising rates before this process ends, without a doubt, because there again, we have to address the issue that we have at hand, and we don't need to sit back and wait a year to see what we decide we're going to do. So we're going to continue to work towards this problem, to help with the problem. It's going to take time to resolve it, and nothing's going to be simple about it. But the problem's here, and there's no doubt that it needs to be addressed. So I think another thing that I've kind of talked a little bit about is for us to being upfront with our citizens, along with our employees, that whenever we get updates or anything, as far as keeping everyone informed. My intentions are next Board of Works meeting, that we will work on the guidelines on this appraisal. The council's all in agreement that we at least need to get that done to give us just some general information. So that will take place next month at the Board of Works meeting. And then once that process starts, then estimating 3 to 4 months before we get anything back reference to any appraisal information. And in that time frame, we will continue to do our due diligence to work the best we can with what revenue we have. And unfortunately, there is going to be raises in the future. There's no doubt about it. I spoke with a friend of mine the other day, and she was talking about her cable bill, how expensive it was, and she just couldn't hardly afford it. And something was said about water, and I said, well, water rates, you know, they're going to have to go up at some point. And they were like, well, how much do you think they're going to go up? I said, well, I don't know yet, but they're going to continue to go up some because of our issues. And I said, would you prefer to have your cable, or would you prefer to have running water? And surprisingly enough, they had to sit there and think about it for just a minute. And I was like, okay. And I get that from that time to time, but I want everyone to really take a hard look at this from that standpoint. I'm like everybody else. I take a lot of stuff for granted, and I just take water always being there for granted. But I think at this point in time, we need to address the issue, because there's going to be times, nights, weekends, or whenever, that if we have a major event, it may not be there. So anyone in the public that has comments, I encourage them to reach out to us with any concerns they have. At this point in time, we're not going to have a lot of answers because we're just looking at options, but we'll be more than happy to discuss those with you and give any information out that we can. So that concludes the discussion this evening on our water and our infrastructure. So does the council have any other topics for discussion this evening? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Judy, second by Larry. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you.